The following production is brought to you by the Talkin' Buds Leaf Show.
Talkin' Buds Leaf Show, another Interview Wednesday edition. One of our favorites on today, buddy, Mr. David Bastl from Sports Interaction. An awesome discussion. We talk Leafs, we talk Jets, we talk Oilers, we talk Canucks. We even talk a little NFL Divisional Weekend.
I love when Dave comes on because we hit on more than what we usually hit on because of how much this guy just loves sports.
I know.
So it's just easy to ask him so many questions about every Canadian team, different sports, and he's a beauty.
Also admitted that he was an Angels fan. Didn't see that coming.
No, did not.
Before we get into it, though, I think we should talk a little bit about the 5-4 overtime win over the Florida Panthers. Your main takeaway from this win. Matt Murray gets the hook. First time all year that's happened. Your main takeaway from this win.
I'm proud of them for that victory because they showed some balls. They showed a little bit of nastiness. They had guys dropping gloves. They had guys stepping in for each other. We know this isn't a tough hockey team. No one's really intimidated by them. But when I see Mike Bunning throwing his gloves off to defend someone, when I see Zach Aston-Reese trying to fight the biggest goof in the league, Radko Gudas, I'm proud of them for that. They stuck in there. They hung with it. Murray didn't have a great game, but Samsonov came in and was fantastic. And then Willie at the end, that was a big win for them. You're starting to look at the standings. It's hard you can't really stack up too many regulation losses at this point because the Lightning are having just as good as a season as the Leafs are. So I'm proud of them for squeaking that one out.
I came on the weekend, this past weekend, and anointed Matt Murray as the guy going forward. I'm not going to throw the baby out with the bathwater, but I am going to do a bit of a tweak to that and say, this is a huge opportunity. This is a door opening for Ilya Samsonov. I could see him starting again on Thursday against the Winnipeg Jets. And if he can put together a few wins here, I could see, take the ball and run with it, man.
Yeah, no. So big W. They needed that really badly.
So let's stop wasting time and get to our discussion with Mr. David Bastl. Making his triumphant return to the Talkin' Buds Leaf Show. He's one of our favorites, the one, the only, Mr. Dave Bastl. Dave, welcome back to the show, my friend.
You know what? My favorite podcast in the whole wide world, I'll tell you that much. How's it going, guys? How are things?
It's going really, really good, man. If you recall, you and I did a season preview show together, and I jokingly said to you that hiring Rick Bowness to be your head coach was like deciding to watch your favorite movie on VHS. And it would appear the joke is on me because the Winnipeg Jets are tied for first in the Central Division with the Dallas Stars. You are our noted Winnipeg Jets expert. Talk to me. What is it that you've seen with this team thus far that has them playing at such 59 points? That's at or near the top of the standings in the NHL.
Yeah. Well, you know what? The key has been Rick Bowness. What happened last year when Paul Maurice leaves the team and Dave Lowry comes in and there's complete chaos that's kind of happened in the dressing room. Blake Wheeler gets stripped of the captaincy before training camp. This locker room itself from afar was a big mess. So you have this veteran guy that's been in the NHL since the early 80s, even played in the 70s, by the way, when he was a player, comes in and solidifies everything. He structures the defense because you look at the talent on defense, and outside of Josh Morrissey and Neil Pionk, which Neil's kind of an average defenseman, but Josh Morrissey is an all-star. I think he's a Norris Trophy candidate as well. Outside of that defenseman, this is a very no-name-ish type of defense. They have an all-world goaltender, which they always have, who is having a bounce-back season, but the structure defensively speaking on this team has completely turned around. And I think that's kind of been the key to what, a lot of things that have kind of gone right for the Jets this season.
One of the things that we have talked about incessantly with respect to the Leafs is what should they add at the trade deadline? Forward defense, what have you. From a Jets perspective, You're going into the trade deadline. When you look at this team, what would you like to see them add to their roster?
Well, I do watch them quite a bit because we do have a Jets/Leafs household, as you know. So I see everything good and bad, and it's been plenty of good this season. But the thing that always comes back, and we've the three of us have kind of harped on it too, is defense into the postseason. I think it would be a massive addition to add something on the back end, and you're not going to get a number one. You may not even get a number two, but if you could bring in a solid 3 or a 2-3 or any combination of a guy that's going to go in there, play 20 to 23 minutes every single night. You don't have to score a lot of points because this team is blessed up front with this offense and how good this team plays when it's on. But you need somebody back there with some accountability on the defensive side of things, and somebody that's going to clear the front of the net, somebody that's going to hit somebody. That would be my wish list number one if I'm in Kyle Dubas's office right now. I'm guessing that he's probably taken some calls on this, and I know he's up against some cap restrictions and so forth, as you guys have talked about on this podcast many, many times. But that would be wish list number one for me if I'm the Toronto Maple Leafs. What about you guys?
I mean, I like when I saw them play the Bruins that one game, in a perfect world, I would like them to add a forward and a defenseman, but that's just not going to be possible. But originally I was kind of in your camp. I wish for a defenseman right off the bat, because I do think just pushing some players down the depth chart on the D side of things would be big for this team. But I don't know. I feel like they also could really use that top 6 winger to go on the second line as well.
Yeah, our big takeaway from the Boston game, Dave, was as much as we love the first line, and I love the combination of Matthews and Nylander together, I thought they had a really hard time. I know Ryan feels the same. I thought they had a really hard time sort of managing the Bergeron, Marchand, Pasternak line. I thought they got outclassed, quite frankly. So it sort of adds to the forward depth situation for me. I think they need another, I don't want to say game breaker, because you're not just going to go get an elite scorer, but someone
Correct.
who can score a big goal for them when they need it.
And also just like, I don't really see, like, we have our wish list of players that we want, but just, is it even possible when you look at what they can deal, what kind of pieces they can give out? I just don't know what's possible for this team in terms of picking up a player at the deadline as well.
It's a handcuff situation, isn't it? You're up against some money, and then if you're going to bring somebody of substance in, it's going to cost you something, and a lot of times a first round draft pick doesn't get you exactly what you want. So does it mean you're packaging a high pick plus a player to get something in return? You're in a tough spot if but you know what the thing is, the Leafs are in the same spot as probably the top 10 teams in the league right now, because what we have talked about as a group, between solid number 3 defenseman or a top 6 forward, well, welcome to the top 10 of the NHL, right? I mean, if you're not in that position, then you're kind of not in the top 10, and you're not going to be in contention for any kind of playoff run like the teams that we're talking about here.
I saw a report going around Twitter yesterday about picking up Ryan O'Reilly and what the Blues asking price for him is. And I got to tell you, Dave, like, I don't know if, like, I understand the Leafs are in win now mode, but I don't know if I love the idea of packaging a first round draft choice and Matthew Knies, a prospect that this organization is very excited about.
Yeah.
For a potential rental whose best days are behind him, who's dealing with an injury, and who for all intents and purposes might not be here when the puck drops next season. It just, I don't know. Like, it's, to me, the risk, it's such high risk.
Yeah. It's massive. And when you said that package, I kind of, I gave it the old, oh wow, that's a deep lump in my throat, and I'm not even a supporter of this Toronto Maple Leafs team. That, like, it's a heavy price, and you kind of look back at the O'Reilly situation, and I don't have to tell you what Buffalo has right now in their organization from that Riley trade, but you know what? St. Louis also has a Stanley Cup, and that probably trumps what the Buffalo Sabres have in Tage Thompson. But you're sitting there going, if you could talk about a win-win trade, your organization in St. Louis, who has never won a Stanley Cup, wins the first ever Stanley Cup in franchise history. And the Buffalo Sabres have arguably one of the best young forwards in the NHL, in the world, for the next 10 years. It's, you look at the situation, you go, okay, that is a Stanley Cup, but I got this guy here for the next decade. Because that's what the Leafs might be doing if they decide to package up those type of players to send to, if they're sending him to St. Louis, or if they're sending him to another team to get that type of player back. I would be very hesitant to do that sort of move.
So would you put the Jets in that same sort of category of a team that's looking for those same pieces, like another impact defensive piece or another like top six forward?
I wouldn't say top six forward. I would actually say, and you know what, and I'm proud to say it. I'm not. It's all good. The Jets are going to play this on the cheap because they usually do. You know what I mean? They're going to tinker with this lineup. They're going to do something on the bottom six. It won't cost them as much, which is great. But I think the time is now for them to start doing something to strengthen that. I love the top six. The top six looks fantastic. I think I'd match up the Jets top six with almost any team in the NHL. That's how good this top six is. Bottom six is another story. That's why we're hearing stories about Jonathan Toews going to the Winnipeg Jets. Well, guess what? If Jonathan Toews is on this Jets team, he's a third line center because he's not going to play before Scheifele. He's not going to be playing before Pierre-Luc Dubois. We're looking at two guys here that are 50-plus point players right now, and Scheifele has 26 goals. So, it's that kind of situation. But what's it going to take to bring this guy in? Because it's a heavy contract. Chicago's going to ask for something. I don't know. I think they're going to tinker bottom six. I think they're going to tinker with their defense, because I think they're kind of in the same spot as the Toronto Maple Leafs right now, and now might be the time to strike. But how hard and how fast are you going to strike?
I think this is a really big year for the Jets, because if you look at that Western Conference, you look at the standings, I think it's just wide open. Like last year, it seemed like Colorado just had at the year to win the Stanley Cup. Everything was going right for them. But if you look at the standings in the Western Conference, I think it's just wide open for the Jets to do something.
I think you're bang on. I think that's exactly it, because you look at the Pacific Division and you're not quite sure who's coming out of there. It looks like a little bit of a dogfight with the top 3 or 4 teams, and maybe you can add on those Alberta teams that might do something here on the stretch drive and so forth. But in that Central Division, it's like, okay, well, are you terrified of the Colorado Avalanche once they get players back? Well, maybe you're scared a little bit. You're not so scared about what they have in net anymore. Are you scared about, the Minnesota Wild, the Dallas Stars? I think you're right, Ryan. You're bang on about how there's probably a lot of teams in that division that are sitting there going, no, it's us. It's our time to do it as well.
Yeah, it is Ryan's got it up in front of us right here, and we're looking at it. It's a coin flip of a division for sure. I could see the Avalanche. I wouldn't necessarily put the Avalanche away just yet. I could see them making a push down the stretch here, but yeah, this is a wide open division. Last Rick Bowness question for you. As you can tell, I'm obsessed with Rick Bowness.
You know what? And one thing, Robbie, I love that you're actually calling his name properly, because I've been on a couple different podcasts, especially at the beginning of the year, where they weren't familiar with him because, he was mostly an assistant coach with most teams. And then he was the head coach of the Dallas Stars before he was let go and so forth. But I keep hearing people saying Bowness. And it's like, no, it's Rick Bowness.
Yeah,
and it's always been Rick Bowness. And the guy has been around since the 70s.
Yeah, he literally has been around forever. That's why I love him so much. When we talked at the beginning of the year, you kind of sort of insinuated that, Rick Bowness is a good sort of placeholder and setting the table for a potential Barry Trotz.
I said it too. Yep.
Yeah, in Winnipeg. Do you still feel that way, or have you seen enough now where you're like, no, Rick Bowness can take this. I'm not going to worry about Barry Trotz anymore.
Great question. And I've actually thought about it because, I'm such a Jets nerd. I look at this and I go, okay, he's 67, 68 years old. How much gas is left in that tank? There appears to be a lot of gas left there. He appears to be ready to commit, but you're knocking on 70. And then the other part of me is Barry Trotz has been so quiet. He's living in Nashville right now. And all we hear, or at least from the Jets perspective, is this the last year of David Poile as the general manager? Because if you're the Nashville Predators, doesn't it make sense to hand the keys to Barry Trotz and say, there you go. You've been in the organization before for the last 20 years, it seems, before he was let go and so forth. He still finds Nashville and loves it as a home. Maybe he doesn't want the rigors of a head coaching, I guess hourly type of thing where when you're at the rink at 6 a.m. and sometimes you're leaving at 11 at night and so forth. I'd be okay with Rick Bowness moving forward, but I'm still not shutting the door on Barry Trotz just yet.
I get the same sort of vibe with Barry Trotz that I get from like a Sean Payton in the NFL. Like there's this ex super hyped coach that's just sort of sitting on the sideline, and everyone's kind of looking, going, where's he going next? What job is he going to take? Yeah, he's linked to everybody. Yeah, it's the same thing that's going on with Sean Payton. The next question I want to ask you, we've had a lot of guests on in the last month or so, and I've asked each and every one of them this. And in my opinion, it's the hottest discussion point going on with the Leafs and their fan base right now.
Okay.
Kyle Dubas. There is the contingent of the fan base that is like, re-sign this guy now. You're taking a huge risk by not giving him a contract extension. We've seen enough. This is a good team year in, year out, playoffs notwithstanding. Or the other group that's like, nope, we need to see playoff success. I personally have done a 180 on this. If you'd asked me back in October, I would have said, nope, I agree with the decision. We need to see some sort of playoff results here. But as the season has gone on and as they've played well yet again, and like Ryan and I are on here every week, we talk about it, we watch every game, I've stopped sort of taking that for granted, and I appreciate that this is a team that is at or near the top of their division every year. Yes, we want the playoff results, but this is a team that Kyle Dubas built, and they have regular season success every year, and I would not be opposed to extending him now. Where do you stand on that?
Oh, this is a tough one because, yeah, you can make a strong argument on both sides. And you know what? I've never really thought of this much longer than what we've been kind of discussing it, but my stance has always been in the past, show me what you've done in the postseason. And we've read the book on Kyle Dubas, and it's exactly what you said. He's had some brilliant regular seasons. They've played very good between the months of October and April, the 10th, 15th, whenever that last 80-second game is. But after that, that's where you're gonna make or break me. And I think I need to see a step forward, finally a step forward if I'm going to renew this guy. And I wouldn't be opposed to letting him go if he doesn't. And I know it seems kind of harsh, but from a Leafs perspective, it's like, how many more times are we going to go through this Washington Capitals syndrome where you're so good in the regular season, but Washington actually broke through and we haven't? They have this core. They're missing something. Is he going to do something at the deadline to change that? Because it almost seems like he's building the same car every single year, and the car's fantastic. I love the car. It's a nice color. It drives fast. It's great on mileage. It's everything. Mm-hmm. But the car better start working in May. And you know what? If I'm driving the car, I want to see June as well. And I know it's harsh, but I don't think Kyle Dubas is going anywhere if you have to wait to make that decision. I think this is the dream job.
That's
I
my
think
thing
it's a wait
too.
And see.
I'll let you chime in here in a sec, right? That's my thing too. The people who go, oh, well, he could flip the bird and say, I'm out of here. And it's like, he's not doing that. No. He's not leaving this job. No way.
Another question I've been asking everyone in regards to that is one round enough? Like, what is enough to keep this guy around?
You know what? I think one round is enough.
I agree.
I think it is. Now, if I'm a Leaf fan like you guys are, I'm expecting more, but I got to see steps, guys. You know what I mean? Like, we've been teaching this team how to walk properly, and now, you know what? I want to see some running, and I want to see a breakthrough. And if you fight to the second round and maybe lose out in 6-7 games, I think, okay, it's a little bit of a disappointment. Nobody wants to be the team that's packing up the bags after, 10 playoff games or 12 playoff games. That's understandable. And you should be thinking that way. But if I see the improvement, I'm okay with signing him on. I'm not sitting there going, nah, you know what, has to be right to the conference final, has to be a Stanley Cup or adios. It's like, that's not how the way things work. I want to see steps forward, and I want to see a second round. And then after that, guess what? The year after that, I want to see a conference final. The window is there. The window is there. Don't let the window shut, because if certain players decide to go elsewhere, or if there's not enough money in the kitty, so to speak, to sign all these guys, because that's always a problem with some of these high profile teams, because you do have contracts coming up in the next couple of years, and I don't think I need to tell you which ones.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
They're going to be making more than what they're making right now, and they're making a lot of money right now. I don't know. I would say that a first round victory is a pretty big deal. And I think the city would erupt if that happened.
100%. I've got a couple more for you, Dave, before we let you go. This one,
Yeah,
I'm going to go
absolutely.
off the beaten path here, and I'm going to pose it to both of you. Connor McDavid. This has been a tumultuous season thus far for the Edmonton Oilers, but it's been a lights out, incredible season for Connor McDavid. A lot of debate I'm hearing across like podcasts I listen to or online or whatever about, would you vote for Connor McDavid to win the Hart Trophy if the Edmonton Oilers do not make the playoffs? What is both of your stance on that as a round table sort of discussion here?
Ryan, you take this one first.
I mean, I can see the point of not voting him because of the playoff situation, but I mean, just this guy's ridiculous, man. Like, I would give it to him because the pace he's on right now, like, it's just like, he's the best hockey player I've ever seen in my lifetime. Like, he is absolutely ridiculous. I think he supersedes all like the talk around playoffs. Like, they always try to find excuses to give people Hart trophies and awards. It's like the Jack Adams where they got to give it to the new hot coach who gets a non-playoff team to the playoffs. But I mean, if he keeps going on the pace he is with points, I would still give it to him.
Yeah, and I'm in that same camp as well. It's just because of how, as you guys were talking about, how ridiculous of a season it is. We see this a lot in Major League Baseball too, where we have guys like Mike Trout winning the MVP, and the Angels have stunk. Trust me, I'm a longtime Angel. I used to work for the organization. It's been horrendous since they won a World Series in the early 2000s, and then it's been nothing. If you're the best player through 82 games, that's what the criteria is. And it would be criminal if they sat back and said, you know what, Erik Karlsson's had such a nice year in San Jose. Look at the points total. We'll give him the Norris and the MVP. It's like, no. Or somebody else in that ilk going, okay, well, so-and-so, Nikita Kucherov's been a top 5 goal scorer and he's back. It's like, no. There's no comparison to anybody on the face of the earth that Connor McDavid isn't the greatest hockey player of 2022-23. And the Oilers could fizzle out for the next 40 games, and I would still give it to him as long as he maintained what he's doing. And all we're seeing is highlights every single night.
It's unbelievable. It really is. It's incredible.
Dave, I wanted to ask you about the Vancouver Canucks and the absolute disaster that is going on there. That just, I feel terrible for Canucks fans. I just want a quick thought on that.
Yeah, it's terrible, yeah, but don't you kind of laugh too, in a sense? No, I'm just So, I'm joking. I got a lot of friends in Vancouver, as you guys do too. It's a situation where they decided to believe in the core, and the core has not delivered at all. Also, when you look at this defense, like, can you name a defenseman that you might be remotely interested in bringing to your organization? And it's like, it's horrendous. This might be the worst 6 in the last number of years. When Luke Shen is playing on your 6 on a somewhat regular basis, you're having some major problems. They have They have the right goaltender. He's been in and out of the lineup, but he's also playing in front of that six. I'm kind of disappointed because I'm a Bruce Boudreau guy, and I'm kind of sad that things have happened like this for him and so forth. Because he really is he's a really good guy, and he really doesn't deserve what's happening there. But there's a lot missing there, and I get the feeling that things are going to get even worse for the Vancouver Canucks before they get better, because I think it's a tear down. And I think that guys like JT Miller should be on the trade deadline. They should look at, do you trade Elias Peterson? I think you welcome offers if it's the right thing to do, and you're getting back the proper package. But man, it's been horrendous, and they've made a lot of mistakes, especially via free agency. I know a couple Winnipeg Jet defensemen that are playing there right now that the Jets are kind of smiling at, because they weren't even interested in re-signing these players, but Vancouver not only signed them but gave them even more money than market price, which is not a thing you want to do.
Horvat's another guy that's been linked to the Leafs, and I've seen Leafs fans being like, we should go after him. But I say the same thing I said about Ryan O'Reilly earlier, that like the asking price is just out of control for a Bo. As much as I think he would fit in the role that Ryan and I are saying that we'd like the Leafs to fill, I don't know, man. It's so funny. All I've seen from Matthew Knies is like college hockey highlights. Like they still got a full face cage on, for God's sakes. But like I just, you look at the numbers and the size and the whatever, and it's like, if we just hold on to this guy, he's a guy that you could plug in for cheap a year or two from now. And I'm just not at a point where I'm ready to part with him to try and win 2 playoff rounds.
I'll go a step forward with Matthew Knies. I think that once college is finished, this guy could jump into your lineup.
Yeah.
I think he can play top 6.
Yeah.
I know it's asking a lot, and you're sitting, but you're surrounded by that much talent, and you have that much talent come out of college. Like it's not, we're no longer in the world, guys. And you know this because we've seen it time and time again. We're no longer in the world where top hotshot prospect has to be nurtured into the league and has to be, red winged, like they used to dump players into the minors for 4 or 5 years. It's like, no, get in the kitchen and start heating things up, because that's how good this guy can be. I truly think that he could be a shot in the arm that you guys are looking for come, I guess, is it late March usually that these players come in from the NCAA?
Essentially right before the playoffs start.
Yeah.
And he's a college kid who comes in. He doesn't really know any better. You just throw him out there and hit the ground running. It was kind of what we saw from Nick Robertson in the bubble against Columbus, where he's never been more impactful at the NHL level than he was during that Columbus series in the bubble. So you hope for a same sort of thing there. Last thing before we let you go, I'm gonna nerd out a little bit here, and we're gonna go off hockey. This weekend coming up is my personal favorite NFL weekend of the year. As I always describe to people, the riffraff is gone. Like these are the best teams, and I just love the way the weekend shakes out with the 2 games on Saturday, 2 games on Sunday. I know that you are up on all this stuff with the Sports Interaction behind you. I've got the Sports Interaction lines right here in front of me.
Fire.
Which one do you are you familiar with these, or which one do you like the best?
I sometimes help create them.
Okay. So perfect.
You know what? There's a couple things that I was looking at, and I know this might kick me in the pants if somebody's watching this on the Monday, but I really like Jacksonville plus the points. Kansas City has played so poorly this season against the number. I think they're 5-11-1 in 16, 17 games, whatever that works out to, because they have a hard time blowing teams out. And Jacksonville's won 5 straight. They're coming off maybe the franchise's biggest victory in 10 years last weekend, which was just tremendous.
Yeah.
And the line's around 8.5 while we talk, I believe.
Yep.
It's over the touchdown threshold, which I'm a big fan of. So I'm actually circling the Jaguars to cover this number. I think Kansas City wins this game. I just think Kansas City is going to squeak past it. Maybe a field goal, maybe a touchdown, so forth. And then the other game, and I'm pretty sure nobody's going to like this, but I've been heavy on the Cincinnati Bengals since about November when they started to get everybody back, started to click as an offense. And I think the Bengals are destined to represent the conference in the Super Bowl. I have them plus the 5 points in Buffalo. I also have them on a money line ticket to win in Buffalo, which is going to be really tough. But if you're having a hard time with Skylar Thompson, Buffalo, you're going to have a hell of a time with Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals and their 25 receivers and the stud behind them in the backfield and Joe Mixon. So I actually, even though it's banged up on the offensive line for the Bengals, I got the Bengals plus the points, and on the money line, I got the Jaguars as well, plus the points. I don't think they're going to win, but they'll make things interesting. Are you guys hating me yet? I know we got some Packers fans over there, but
before we, I don't want to talk about that embarrassment of an organization, Dave. We'll move on from that. Before we jumped on, Ryan said, he goes, I'll take the Bengals plus 5.
Where do you see that number going? Because I originally saw it at plus 4.5, and I was going to jump on that, but now it's plus 5. Do you see it moving at all?
That's a great question. Now, here's the unique thing about Sports Interaction. We have such a heavy Ontario clientele. And as you guys know, there's a massive Buffalo Bill fan base in Ontario. So a lot of times you'll sit, Johnny and Jane, whoever wants to bet, and we welcome everybody, of course, and you're throwing money on the Buffalo Bills. If that continues to happen like we anticipate, because your heavy money is going to come in on this Friday, Saturday, and especially the Sunday, because they play 3:00 Eastern on Sunday afternoon. Mm-hmm. If that continues to happen, we're going to see that number shrink. So if you're interested in the Bengals right now, I would say bet the Bengals now, because you're going to get 4.5 or 5. I got 5 the other day, and I was pretty happy with it. But if the Bills' money continues to go down or come in, the Brooks have to protect themselves. So you'll see the number drifting a little bit lower because they want some buyback on the Bengals side of things, just because it's such a heavy enforced Bills economy that we live in. But that's just my professional guess. I could be totally wrong on this, but it's Sports Interaction, because if it's Canadian heritage and so forth, it's a different style of book than what you'll see with some of the American numbers that are out there.
Yeah, I'm hammering that Bengals spread 100%.
I also don't mind the Giants plus 7.5, because what we saw it last weekend with the Bills and the Dolphins, and then the Bengals and the Ravens.
Yep.
Divisional opponents are hard. And I don't care, like I said, I don't care if you have Skylar Thompson as your quarterback. Yep. If it's a divisional opponent, it's hard. And the Giants are riding high right now. The Eagles, how healthy is Jalen Hurts? They sort of like sputtered at the end there with the Hurts injury. I'm not saying the Giants are going to win, but I do not think the Eagles are just going to walk through the New York Giants. Not at all.
Yeah, well, a couple things on that. I had to get my notes out here for my NFL stuff, because I was talking about this earlier. I just wanted to confirm a couple things. Couple things that I will check mark for your argument, because I'm on board with that.
Yeah.
Giants are 5-1 against the number in their last 6 appearances in Philadelphia, so they cover numbers. These two teams are division rivals. They know a lot about each other. They see each other. They get sick of each other. They hate each other. It's always been like that forever and ever. You guys know about division rivals. Number 3, and maybe the most important, the Giants have been one of the best teams against the number all season long. 14-4 on the season against the number. So what that's telling me is the betting lines will throw out numbers against the Giants, and the Giants will be competitive in everything. I think they're competitive this weekend as well. I'm not convinced that Jalen Hurts is 100%. Not only has he recovered from a late season injury, but he's also coming off a bye week. There's some rust there. Yep. This Eagles team doesn't look like the Eagles team that played in November or October or September, and how they're smashing teams and Jalen Hurts MVP and so forth. I think there's a little bit of kink in the armor there. The Eagles probably win this game, but the Giants make this ridiculously hard for them. I think they cover this number.
100% with you. That's one that I'll be all over. Dave, thank you so much for coming on again, buddy. We love having you on. Great. And this is definitely not going to be the last time. As we get closer to playoff time, we're going to have you on again.
I look forward to it, guys. Love talking hockey. Love talking football. Love talking to you guys. Take care.
Awesome,
Thanks,
buddy.
buddy.
See ya. Once again, thank you so much to Dave Bastl for coming on and talking to us. I love, you know what? Like, I know we're a Leaf podcast, and I know there's some of you that are going to listen to that at the end and go like, oh my God, they're talking NFL. It's like when I post the football episodes on our channel, people are like, football? But it's like, whatever, man. I could sit and talk that stuff all day.
Well, I think most of every North American sports fan is going to be watching football this weekend. So I think we might be appealing to more people than we think. But if you don't like it, just skip it.
Thank you so much, everybody, for checking us out. If you like what you see, hit that like and subscribe button below.
Spread the word. Tell your friends.
We really appreciate it. We will see you this weekend.